Everybody experiences loss in some kind of way throughout their life, whether it is the loss of a loved one through their passing, the loss of relationships through them ending, the loss of friendships, even the loss of a career or a job can still have a deep impact on you. And yet, I still feel like we are not very good at talking about it in a way that feels tangible and reachable and healing. Step in, Sue Deagle. Now, I was very fortunate to share this stage with Sue at the Do Lectures in 2024, I think it was. And walking on after her, having just witnessed one of the most incredible talks that I've ever seen, was a real honor. And me and Sue have stayed friends since then. And nobody talks about loss in the way that Sue does. Now, Sue lost her husband when their children were fairly young to a death that came out of the blue, out of nowhere. A very healthy man who all of a sudden was no longer here. And Sue had to pick up her life and try to find a new way of living, having experienced the toughest of losses. What's incredible about Sue is how she has found a way to find a new, incredible, amazing life that's still full of joy while also properly processing the experience of the deep loss. Sue's book, Do Loss, has just been released, and I urge you to go and buy it because nobody talks like Sue does when it comes to loss. Nobody can inspire you in the way that Sue does when it comes to loss. And if you sit back and listen to this podcast, by the end of it, you're going to agree with me too. I will leave the link to get the book in the comments below. But for now, sit back, hold on tight, and enjoy this incredible conversation with Sue. And I'll see you on the other side. Dysfunction is everywhere. In our families, in our cultures, and in our systems. And this is Dysfunctional, the podcast that helps you name the things that most people can or won't see. Let's call it out, break it down, and maybe even start a bloody revolution. So, Sue, how are you doing?
I'm great, Josh. How are you today?
I am good. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you. We've had a couple before, but yeah, with how we met and stuff like that, I'm looking forward to getting into the conversation. And actually, before I ask you to give us a little bit of information about who you are, I want to just explain how we met. So the first time I ever met you, I guess I saw you on stage. I just saw you on stage first, right? That would
Yeah,
be...
I was on stage and then you were on stage.
Yeah, and I just remember sitting down and you... Like, you know, when you speak at places like this, you'll know as well as I do. Like, sometimes you're wondering what you're going to follow. And then I just sat down and listened to you talk. And this is not a joke, by the way, not a joke. And I'm not exaggerating just because you're in front of me. But I reckon it was one of the best talks I've ever heard.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And that's not an exact... It was easily the best talk I've ever heard on loss and grief, right? But, because I was thinking about this earlier, I reckon it was the best talk. Yeah, one of the best talks I've ever heard that I've been at, yeah.
Yeah, and I always remember because, we share a topic that the world and culture thinks is very heavy.
Yeah.
Loss is very heavy. Toxic parents are very heavy. But at the same time, you and I both know we're like evangelists for the cause of bringing this stuff out into the open. And we're also, in some ways, just by being Josh and Sue, we're showing the world that you can have a toxic parent and move your way through life and thrive and be happy and joyous and laugh. And you can have a catastrophic loss and grief experience and even have that with 2 kids, and you can still live a thriving life. So
Yeah.
sometimes when people consume what we have to offer, they're a little bit like, clutch my pearls. Like, this seems like a stressful topic, loss and toxic parenting, et cetera, resilience. They're both tied by resilience, right?
Yeah.
And I think that like when I was up doing my talk at the Do where we met, I was telling my story, et cetera. And then you came up next, and I remember exactly what you said to the audience, which is, I wish, as you all are drying your eyes out there, I could say that this talk was going to, help you feel calm, but buckle up.
Yeah, you set that up for me to be able to do that with the way that you talked, because I really remember. So I'm always, whenever I watch a talk that's before me, I'm always thinking, I need an icebreaker. Can I pull an icebreaker out of this? A reference to what they've said. And what you do, and people will notice this when they listen to this podcast for what we go on and talk about. I think it's something that's really special, which is um, you are able to hold like the deep sense of sadness and grief and loss, and but hold it in a way that feels safe, where you're at the same time letting me and the people that are watching or listening feel okay and laugh and feel a sense of happiness and a sense of joy. Not, you don't jump from one to the other. You're able to do both simultaneously. And that is why I knew instantly, when I come on, I'm gonna be able to make a joke, because which seems crazy when your talk is about, the loss of the person that you loved so much. And but you teed it up, and I remember saying, I'm the author of a book, It's Them Not You, How to Break Free from Toxic Parents. So if you thought I was coming up here to lighten the mood after that talk,
That's right.
buckle up, because we're going even further in. But it just brought a laughter. It was like everyone's crying and then laughing at the same
Yes.
time.
Crying and then laughing. I mean, and isn't that the whole microcosm of the human condition? We're crying and laughing, right? I really firmly believe that we don't need help in life for our podium moments when we're getting the gold medal wrapped around our necks, or our victory laps, right? We know how to execute those, and we know that our friends will be with us for those. It's these tougher conversations that you and I have with people about our topics that we are evangelists for, that we have to let people in. We have to bring them in. People are naturally like, oh, no, can I just shut the door to that hard topic? And when you shut the door to the hard topic, not only do you not heal yourself, then you really can't help people, console
Yeah.
people, help your friends all around you. So, I mean, I think the audience was totally wrung out, but also changed in a way that we showed that you can have joy and laughter. I always like to say, I want to bring levity and depth to this
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
Levity and depth, because it would just be like a dirge, if you were let's talk about loss one more time, people oh my God, please, no, let's talk about toxic parents. No, what we're doing is figuring out how to be not alone in our suffering, and to help each other through it. So
Yeah.
combo of the two of us, it was like a 1-2 punch,
Yeah. I knew, not long into your talk, I was like, I know absolutely why they've put me after you. And then obviously you went to do the workshop after, and I just came, I knew straight away I was going to come straight to that. And then the rest is history, and we sort of stayed in touch, and it was a good weekend, man. It was a good weekend. And that the highlight for me and everybody else was your talk followed by mine.
I think you can safely say that. You bet. Doesn't get any better than that. That was the peak. The rest of the event was.
I'm not that arrogant, I promise.
I
But
mean,
look,
I'm American. I'm supposed to say shit like that, but okay.
Yeah, I'll get it in. I thought I'd get it in. I'll say it for us. Why don't you, for the sake of people listening, tell us a little bit about what you do in the world today, and maybe we can even start to explore how you got there as well.
Yeah, perfect. So what I do in the world today, I'm gonna do a little combo platter on those things, because where I came from matters about where I am. So
Yeah.
right now I'm recording this podcast from the state of Virginia, right outside of our nation's capital. We are blanketed in a sheet of ice that has been here for 2 weeks. Not very common in Virginia, but very common where I grew up in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is like a Midwestern kind of state. Had one of those happy, great childhoods until the steel industry got completely outsourced and everybody in my rural town, including my dad, lost their jobs. So that was like my first formative experience with loss. Loss is kind of my topic. And
Mm.
that formative experience with loss made me decide that I was just going to fend for myself, that we're all alone in this world, and I was going to become the Lone Ranger and provide for myself for the rest of my life and not need anybody else. People are great, and I would have, people in my life, but Sue Deagle, would take care of Sue Deagle. There would be nobody else, that I needed. So, got a job, went to college, got a job, then decided to just up the ante and get an MBA because if you're an American capitalist, surely you can provide for yourself for forever. And in the mid 90s, when I went to business school, there weren't a lot of chicks at business school.
Mm.
So it was like 22% females and the rest men at business school. And
Wow.
I met my husband at business school, Mike. And we were two, high powered MBAs, go, 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 two kids, white picket fence, the whole deal. And we had a great life. He was a great guy. And 18 years into our marriage, on a November night in 2016, I woke up and found him unresponsive on the floor and called the ambulance. And by the time we got to the hospital, he was gone. So, very much like a disappearance of life as you know it, a disappearance of a person, a disappearance of a family. And, there are so many ways to lose people. Sometimes you can see that coming with cancer or other diseases. Sometimes, like my husband, you have a sudden heart attack. Sometimes, people are older. Our parents, we know, will pass before us. But this was one of those things that was just out of time. So, how I approached that
Sorry, just to interrupt you, was that so completely? It's
complete,
completely out of the blue. He was completely
complete,
healthy, no signs,
yeah.
life was good, and then just in the middle of the night it happened.
And he took excellent care of himself. So his mom died of breast cancer when he was 22. So before I ever met him, his mom died. I never had a mother-in-law, and so he was always very fanatical about his health because he wanted to be around for the long term. So I joke around like he was a salmon and blueberry and kale eating kind of dude. He went to the doctor regularly, and in fact, he just had an executive physical in April of that year that gave him a clean bill of health. And when I found him unresponsive and when he passed away, I didn't even know what he died of. I had to wait to the autopsy report because it was just like it didn't make any sense at all. There was like how could healthy Mike Deagle, like the only person on the planet who could actually turn down a chocolate chip cookie as opposed to the rest of us,
Mm.
and who was really focused. And he had just turned 50. So he was 50 years old, super healthy. So again, like your whole world is like, oh my God, upside down. And he left us very well provided for. His will was tight. He, great life insurance, but I was 48 years old and I needed to keep on working. Right. Like, and I think a lot of people in this circumstance, they're like, well, I mean, you're going to quit your job and stay at home with the kids. But that Lone Ranger Sue from those Western PA days was like, oh no, no. I mean, like we got to keep this place running. We got a mortgage to pay. The kids were 11 and 13,
Wow.
kids to raise. So I actually had to get a new job 5 months after Mike died because my old job was just winding down. So I interviewed for this job with a defense contractor that supported um, military bases around the globe. So our soldiers, sailors, and airmen are throughout the Middle East, throughout Europe, the southern United States, etc. So I took a new job, and the great thing about that job is I was not Widow Sue at that job. Now, of course, those people could Google me. I'm sure they did Google me, but I showed up as just myself, not without a history.
Mm.
And they, one of the tropes or cliches about loss is like, don't make any sudden changes. But I had to have a job. Like I had
Mm.
to have an income. I made this change. I went to work for this company. And for me, for a person who needed to work to feel secure, it was really life changing for me because I just got to be myself there. And then I got to be surrounded by people. And when we think about loss, who does loss well? I don't know, like maybe religious institutions, right? They
Mm,
know how to help people through loss, but we don't go to church anymore. Like
mm,
we are not societies, European societies and American societies, the decline in church going. So you don't have those kinds of communities to support you during loss. But the military, they are actually trained in how to deal with loss because that's a huge part of their mission, right? That you lose soldiers, sailors, and airmen during, during deployments. And so I got to immerse myself in a culture of veterans who worked alongside me at the company. They had retired and worked at the defense contractor with me, and active duty military. And what they gave me was people to have interactions with about loss who were not like, I'm terrified. Like, please don't talk about this. Like, and especially like a good friend of mine named Carl. He was a retired chief master sergeant from the Air Force, command chief master sergeant. And if I was having a down day where I needed to talk a little bit about my loss and the kids, et cetera, Carl was always there for it. And it's not like these military guys are like thinking about loss all the time, but they are given structure. They're given a culture that accepts it and understands it. They're given rituals that honor it, and they're given a mission that they know sometimes not everybody comes back from.
mm.
So, I mean, I think that, oh, did I lose you?
We're still here. Go on, carry on.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I think that that was like a really big game changer for me, right? That I was surrounded by people who could hold my loss. And then over time, how did I get to where I am today? So, a year in, 2 years in, 3 years in, people would still expect me to be less than. So, like acquaintances would come up and 3 or 4 years in, and they would say, "How are you? How are you?" And I would be like, I am always filled with longing and sadness for Mike, but the kids and I are, I would say, kicking ass and taking names, right? Because that that is what honors Mike, working
Yeah.
our way through our hardest times and our biggest loss. That's what honors Mike. Was it incredibly difficult? You bet. But I figured out for me what all my coping strategies could be around that, which was saying adios to Lone Ranger Sue. And that was having people help. And I finally learned how to ask for help and accept help. That was a huge deal. And I learned how to be the leader of my family, to lead the kids while also making space for any emotion that they might have and honoring like their loss and grief process. So as we kind of worked our way through this, I realized like we were changed, we were transformed. We we were on track to live a great life with Mike. And now we are on track to live a different kind of great. He's not here. Like we can't change that. But we honor him every day with what we do. And we use our imagination to work towards a different kind of great. We close down our lives sometimes around loss. Like I've lost a job, I've lost my health, I've lost my identity. I'll never be the same. That's actually true. You will never be the same. But a pathway gets opened that if you navigate it, if you trial and error your way there, if you surround yourself with friends, if you do the thinking for yourself alongside that sadness, you can find your different kind of great. So 2 years ago, I left my corporate gig because I just realized talking about loss is kind of what I'm on the planet for.
Mm.
And I cannot stand around and just, be my defense contractor self, which I tremendously enjoyed, when I could be talking to people about how their lives can be a different kind of great, how they can thrive after loss, after a period of time, because that's what we're made for. And you, as a resilience consultant, you know this more than anyone. So when I was trying to find my way, I also I primarily read memoirs because I wanted to read people's stories. I didn't
Yeah.
want to read like a how to. And my book, which is Do Loss: A New Way to Move Through Change. My book is a combination. It's a combination of a memoir, my story, of a mindset and a playbook to choose from as you're navigating loss, and also something that you could use when you're helping others through loss to understand what they're going through, to perhaps even just say, hey, I don't know what to say in this circumstance, but here's a book for you, like, to use during your lost journey, right? So it's a combination of all these things, because in my brain, that's what I learned, that I needed stories, I needed people's support. But the science, there's also science in here. So there's a couple of resilience researchers. Ann Maston is this OG resilience researcher back from the 70s. And she coined this term called ordinary magic. She studied young children who were not in the best parental circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And back in the 70s, the scientific theory was like, oh, you either got it or you don't. Oh, you're going to be resilient, or your life's over. Like, that was literally, they would categorize people and be like, oh, well, not worth investing time in you. You are not resilient, as if that's some inherent characteristic. Her science and her research showed that each of us has an adaptive ability inside really hard situations if we have the right kind of support. So these parents couldn't support these kids in her study and Ann Maston's study, but the schools supported them, their doctors supported them, their community center supported them. So when you have the ability to bring adaptive strategies to kids, she coined it ordinary magic. We think it looks like magic. We are resilient even despite these circumstances, but we actually all have it in us. So that really kind of, oh, I was looking for the science. Like, why me? Why am I resilient? Why are you resilient? Like, what's the difference? And the difference is what she's talking about, ordinary magic. And then there's another guy who I love, Dr. George Bonanno. He's out of NYU, 2 books, The Other Side of Sadness and The End of Trauma. And his one-liner is, resilience is our default mode. Resilience is our default mode. But what's happening, and why you talk about the things you talk about and I talk about the things I talk about, is culture tries to tell you that you're not. You're not resilient. You're always going to have a less than life. Oh no, if you had a toxic parent, oh, it's just going to be an uphill battle for you the whole time. And that mistaken shaping of our beliefs, not because anybody's a bad person, it's just loss is so scary to us. We just automatically think, oh, this is going to be bad and my life is over. But that is not the science. Like, that is not how we're wired.
Mm. So would you see the people at the defense place that you were working at, would you say that what was his name? The main guy that you said that was
Carl.
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 Would you say like he was one of the ordinary bits of
Yes.
magic in your life?
Yes. Exactly. He helped me during this critical time, like, adapt to my new world order, never by saying to me, well, you're just going to have to accept less out of life. No, he was just like, he had been, deployed around the world. He had had his own challenges and difficulties. He had had his own losses. And so not only was he just an example of thriving, he was someone who could be with me when I was happy and be with me when I needed to talk through and, like, cry some things out, right? So
Yeah.
that adaptive infusion helped walk me along inside of that environment.
It makes me think that like, and this is like so true. Obviously, you've mentioned it, but the book that you've written is not just for people that are experiencing it, right? And probably you could even argue that it's even more for the people that know somebody that's experiencing loss. Because if I look at like, so at the beginning of last year, I went through a separation, right? Which is, it was the loss of my family unit as I know it, right? And so it was like, it was a big loss, right? And I had to go through this big transition. And what I learned is that most of my friends didn't know what to do with me, so they just stayed away. And I could tell I could tell that they did that
Yeah.
because we used to talk all the time, like I don't know, even if
Yeah.
it was about football and stuff, but they would call me less. But I had one friend, I'll say his name, Mark. I moved into a flat and he made sure he knew the date that I moved into the flat. He sent me a plant. When I moved into the flat, he was like, mate, what's your address? Sent me a plant and then checked in with me all of the time and just kept, he like became a bit of a shining light to me that
Yeah.
I it will get better. I'll be all right. I'll be all right. I'm just got to get through this bit. And he used to be
Yes.
like, he never said these things, but like a bit like Carl was to you. He was like my ordinary magic, you know. He checked in with me, never tried to fix or change, let me feel what I was feeling,
Yeah.
but like was a like an anchor that remained there, that anchored me to normality, you know, and let me kind of navigate what I did. And similarly for me, I feel like my work was a bit of a positive for me, you know. There's a lot of like,
Yes.
I do a lot of workplace well-being and stuff like that, and a lot of different things are taught, but for me, the normality of work was so important to me.
So I think I want to caveat this, right? Because the way you and I handled our losses is we figured out what worked for us. I needed to keep working. That gave me security and safety.
Mm,
It was in tune with everything I'd been since I was a 21-year-old.
mm,
And you also, you kind of need that energy. If there are listeners out there who are like, I think in my losses, I would want to circle the wagons and cocoon, which is something I talk about in the book. Peace. That is so good too. I think what you and I are saying is we found what worked for us, and work was a salve and like a place I could go and not be widow Sue. Work was a place you could go and not be separated Josh. And
mm,
that, like, to have those places, but as we figure out what works for us, what places work for other people, that's a, that's a, it's critical that people understand that. And then I do want to remark about Mark, like the things you described there, no rocket science involved.
no.
What was involved, and this is again, I'm trying to create a cultural transformation. What was involved for Mark was courage.
Mm,
He may not even think about it that way because it might have been easy peasy for him. He cares about you and he'd be like, oh, plant is great, I'm going to do this. But the people who stayed away, they're afraid of hurting you with some remark. They're afraid of what your loss means to them in their own life, and they're afraid of their own losses, right? So we get a little bit caught up in a fear spiral when
mm,
other people have a loss. They're like, oh my God, could a separation happen to me? Oh my God, could my husband die? Oh my God, could I have a health diagnosis? Right. And we just have to realize that's our monkey brain. It's doing its thing. Peace. It's okay. Like, we're not going to judge it for that, but we have to come to the other side and realize. And I used to get kind of irrationally angry about this when people couldn't help me because I was just
mm,
like, hey, I'm the chick with the dead husband.
yeah,
You can't even like come to coffee with me. I
yeah.
would get, and now over time I realize it's just a lot of fear wrapped up in that. So whenever you say to yourself, okay, why am I not sending Josh a plant? Why am I not just leaving a lasagna on his doorstep, as he's in his new flat and needs to kind of get up and running? We just have to question our fear. But I think sometimes the better way to do that, and again, you would probably know this better than me, a better way than saying, hey, fear, I'm going to overcome you, is just do your Venn diagram. What do you have to offer and what does the person need? And look
Mm,
at that little overlap. And like for me, Carl was a big part of that because we traveled together all the time. But my friends here at home, my best guy friend Takis, came over, took the car, got all the tires filled up with air, took it to get it inspected. My brother-in-law took my daughter to see Moana when it was time for that.
mm,
My mom cooked meals and drove people around. Like, there are so many ways that we don't even have to think about our fear. Excuse me. We can do actions that fit that overlap of where we are. So I think acknowledging loss, that's what, like, people want to be seen. You don't want to feel like you're the only person in the world who ever got separated. And it's not like you believe that logically, but when you're going through a loss, you're like, I am the only one
yeah.
having this. And when people show up with something as little as a plant, like Mark did, they are just acknowledging you. And I think we could also just encourage everybody to say, if you don't know what to say, I don't know what to say. And
Yeah.
I do a little bit of an old fashioned thing. I say, my heart goes out to you,
Mm,
because my heart does go out to you. Like, when you've lost and you're going through this tumultuous time, you're in your cocoon phase trying to figure it out. There is no acceleration in there. You just got to work it through. And my heart goes out to you. I don't know what to say, but my heart goes out to you. And I just left a box of chocolate chip cookies on your front stoop.
Yeah. Yeah, and like it plays such a big part. Even, I mean, I'm sure Mark wouldn't have thought about it in this much depth, but
Yeah.
the place that I moved into had nothing in it apart from like a plant for a bit. Do you know what I mean? That Mark had
Yes.
got me. So, but
Yeah.
like it became like like a
A
signal of
symbol.
like a symbol of like I have
Beautiful.
people care because I don't know if you speak about this, right, or if you experience this, but was there any? So let me try and formulate what I'm saying. At the beginning of the loss, I would feel guilty if I felt any happiness,
Oh,
right? And I felt a little bit of like, especially like with the kids, for example, I wouldn't. I there's a like an outlet village place that you go near where I live, right? And I go and look around there at the closers sometimes. And if when I was with the kids all the time, it would be I'm going here. Does anybody want to come? And there was like one Friday afternoon, I was trying to get myself off of the sofa to do something, and I thought maybe I could go to the outlet, and I thought I can't. It would be betrayal to the
oh.
kids to go. Like, did you experience any of that? Well, I'm sure you must have.
Yeah. People are so judgmental about any sign of happiness.
Yeah,
And how weird is that? Like,
yeah.
just pause for a second and say, wow, like as if there's a legislation around suffering and how you're supposed to act. Like we aren't in the like where the, black clothes days anymore. Like we actually can suffer and follow our emotions. Here's my take on that. Right out of the gate, my husband was very, very tidy. So the kids and I were like, we were like keep it because we loved him. We loved him enough that we weren't tidy, but we were going to be tidy for him.
Yeah.
So one of the things that he did was each of us had a squeegee in our shower. We had the glass shower, so we would squeegee at the end of our shower because then the glass doesn't get all whatever. And that made him happy. So 2 days after he died, like we didn't take showers for days because we were so messed up. 2 days after he died, one of the kids said to me, "I took a shower today and I didn't squeegee," and I was like, "Me neither." Like so you like to find these little like that is gallows humor, right?
Yeah.
And that's a thing. Like it wouldn't have a term if it wasn't a thing. And I think also it's important that I could laugh, even just a little chuckle along with the kids on that because you cannot have a consistent sadness feeling, especially for children, right? We have to show people that we're riding all these emotions, right? That you can be happy and sad. Clearly, culture does not understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. You can be happy and sad. You can have levity and depth. You can be happy one minute and crying the next minute.
Mm.
And that introduces that whole thing we don't want to think about, which is all of our like crazy emotions, but every emotion ends. And actually one of the things I found to be so purifying and clarifying was a good solid cry. Like
Yeah.
a absolutely in the shower yucking cry. Now, where my kids are concerned, I would let them see me cry, but I would never let them see me out of control.
Mm.
So if I felt like I needed to be out of control, that's in the shower doing it there. But I never wanted them to think that I didn't cry. And many years later, even just like it'll be 10 years in November that Mike died. This past weekend, I was out in Denver visiting my son, and we were in a space up in the mountains that I had been in with Mike, but I hadn't been in since Mike died. So like it was a condo that's our cousin's. Mike and I had slept on the pull-out couch there like many, many years ago, and I was struggling. Like my body was like on high alert. Like, and that doesn't really happen in my normal life because in my normal life we live in a different home now. I've processed so much stuff, but I hadn't been in this space. So I said to Connor, "Hey, I'm not really feeling that great. I don't know if it's the altitude up here or the fact that I just remember being on this couch with Daddy." And he was like, "Okay, got it, got it." Right? Mattering is a thing. So there's a couple books out that just came out about this topic, mattering. Mattering is like you actually give your kids the chance to help you
Mm.
and then they matter, right? Like the three of us as a family, very early on, I was like, I need everyone's help around here. Like whenever the regular sibling battle royales were happening, which still happen, I
Hmm.
would kind of like take the two knuckleheads and be like, listen, it's just the three of us. Like I would literally say, and I don't know if this is a saying in the UK, I would literally say, charity begins at home.
Yeah.
You, I cannot have you guys going at each other when I am just trying to keep, things together.
Mm.
And people are like, oh, I really don't like my brother. I don't like my sister, but I'm going to give my mom a break. I'm going to help my mom by doing this. And that mattering, like at 11 and 13, right out of the gate, I never treated them with like kid gloves, like, oh, you got this dead dad and I should, oh, no, because you have to still raise them right in the circumstance. You can't, I wasn't going to let that loss ruin their life. And so therefore I had to carry that into my parenting too. And those were not easy times. Like people are already suffering. The children are already suffering and sad, but that doesn't mean like, that we don't do the basic things to raise them well. And showing humor is one of those.
Yeah, you also have this kind of like you've got this get up and go attitude, right? And again, like I want to try and formulate what I'm saying properly here. Like in the well-being space that I've sort of operated in for a number of years now, there's been this, and I believe right sort of push in what you've already talked about yourself, right? Which is to allow people the normality of crying and to let people know that like it's okay to cry and you should have a good cry and let it out. But I think sometimes what we've done in doing that is we've almost stigmatized the moment where you also go, now we need to go a bit. Now we need to do something, right? And the reason I say that is because when I look again at even if I look over the last year, and I've had various different losses in my life, but that's the most recent.
Yeah.
There were moments where I had to say to myself, you've done enough now. Tomorrow, when we get up tomorrow, we're going to go for a walk or we're going to go to the gym. You are going to do something because I can be at risk of falling into,
Mm.
would I say, wallowing or getting comfortable in the kind of downside of it. So, like, I don't know if you speak to this bit at all or like whether you have any insight on when is the right time to say enough is enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. I do speak about it in the book, and again, like to your point, the book is about all kinds of loss. It's not just about death, because I had that loss when I was a kid in Steel Country. Whenever
Mm.
my whole community fell through the floor, I had the loss of Mike, and I've had losses after that. I think that I talk about something in the book called actionable hope, because I think hope is a little bit, oh, rainbows and dandelions and whatever. Actionable hope is like, what do you fundamentally believe about yourself? That doesn't necessarily mean like today might be a great day for wallowing, but if you believe in your future, right? If you believe in, if you are open to the possibility that you can't see the future yet, but it's going to be a good one, that you believe in your ability to heal, and that you have engaged participation in the way forward. So those are the three components of actionable hope.
Mm.
You're open to the possibility, you believe in yourself, you believe in your abilities, and you trial and error engaged participation. If you believe that about life, that whatever life hands you, you can use this mindset to kind of look forward into it. I think after a while, you actually get sick of yourself wallowing.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the metric, right? Because I also talk in the book about, they talk about the phases of grief, which are mostly the emotions of grief, despair, anger, acceptance. Those were put together by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in like the 50s for cancer patients, for people who were accepting the fact that they were dying. They weren't intended for us people left behind. So
Oh.
it's a little messed up there that, that wasn't the original intent of her science. So I in my journey, I knew how it felt for me. I had a cocoon phase, like you're talking, and we could call it wallowing or whatever. It doesn't really matter. We're not going to judge it with a word. Cocoon, adapt, emerge. So cocoon is like, I think sometimes people consume you and I and they think, well, what did they go from 0 to 60? Like, oh, everything's great and fine. No, like
Mm.
cocoon really is a place where you are circling the wagons, and I have some strategies inside the book that you can pick if they resonate with you. My favorite in the cocoon phase is cope dirty. Cope dirty. And that's a Dr. George Bonanno phrase. It means, again, like coping is legislated. Oh, that's an acceptable coping activity, but that's not an acceptable coping activity.
Yeah.
Yes, if you are doing something very destructive, peace. But we all understand that.
Yeah.
But like, a second drink is not that destructive. My thing was like I would watch Star Wars movies. If I needed to like blitz out, I would just put those movies on the TV and watch, 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 watch. And the
Mm.
kids would come in and they would be like, "Oh, it's a Star Wars movie day. Okay, okay, mom, you're okay." Like again, like that was sort of the signal. So inside Cocoon, you spend that time just being with yourself,
Mm.
pushing other people aside or welcoming them in, whatever you feel like doing. And then in adapt is about engaging in your way forward. What makes you feel better? Because I
Mm.
think after a time we get a little bit like tired of wallowing, and our friends who have been around for the wallowing they run out of gas too.
Yeah.
And I think you can tell then when people start to peel off, you're like, okay, it might be the cocoon phase might be about to wrap up. And
Yeah.
we're going to move into adapt, and we're going to start taking actions. And not every action is a perfect action. Like there are things that I can't believe I did. Like I took the kids on a vacation that Mike had planned to a water park in the Bahamas. And we got there, and the guy who did all the like water park rides and activities was not there. So I was like, okay, no, I'm going to ride all the rafts. I'm going to do the lazy river. And I'm totally capable of all those things. But the missing person was just so obvious. And then we would go out to dinner, and there would be all these 4-person families. And there
Mm.
we were, our 3-person family. And I was like, oh, I told the kids, we're going to the grocery store and we're eating in the room for the rest of this trip. Like, so you try things, right? Like, I thought this
Yeah.
was fun and great, and it wasn't fun and great. But okay, tick, we're not ready for that. We're not ready to go places where 4-person families are.
Mm.
Note to self, we will adjust. But then we had like true victories and things that were great for us when we were spending more time with our extended family. So adapt is like, personally for me, adapt is like regulators. Be in the woods, work out, read, be with my friends, have my solitary time. Again, a custom made regulator register for you. And then
Mm.
emerge is like, okay, you're ready for the real world. The pain will never go away. You're always going to feel something about your separation. You're
Mm.
always going to have a level of questioning about yourself. You're always going to think about the kids. You're always going to think about that. We shouldn't,
Mm.
I don't believe in closure. I think closure is bullshit. I think we have to know that when we emerge, cocoon, adapt, emerge, that we're ready for the world and ready for our transformed selves.
Yeah.
We've become, because things will not be the same. But that doesn't mean, I just think we have a failure of imagination. We
Mm.
have a failure of imagination that life has a lot of ways to be very, very good.
Yeah. And it can be very, very good alongside the
Everything you've lost.
everything you've lost. Yeah. And I think that like it just shows you as well, by the way, even in the way that we're doing now, that just being able to talk about it and like normalize it and make it
Yes.
not this big scary thing where you go, oh, like I do. Because even then when you were like we went on a holiday and then there was like, we were the only 3-parent family, I could feel a bit of me goes, oh, my kids are gonna, they're
Oh,
gonna do that, but then like you carry on talking and I hear you talk and then I think, oh, like we're having a normal conversation about it, like it's okay, you can do that, and then
yes.
realize that yes, that is true, that is sad, that is painful, and there's things that I can do, there's new memories that you can create, there's
Yes.
new, and I feel like kids especially, and you've already said this again, but just to come back to it, Kids especially are incredible at adapting. When they're supported emotionally, they teach us how to adapt.
So much. Like my daughter, her name's Kendall, and she was 11 when Mike died. So she only got 11 years with her dad.
Mm,
She only has 11 years worth of memories. And when you're 11, what do you remember? But um, I remember she had such a profound perspective very early on. Like she actually said to me, and I'll never forget, she was sitting on the stairs. She said to me, when bad things happen to other people, they're not going to know what to do, but I am.
mm,
So she had already been like, this thing happened, and I'm going to be able to handle other things. And we as a family, we don't say it as much, but we used to say when the kids were younger, when things would go sideways, we would say, nobody died.
yeah,
So we got this. Like we already survived the hardest thing. We
yeah,
got this. And she had a very profound way. Like, when people are like, "Oh, Mike is happy in heaven." And my husband was like a real go-getter and pretty intense. And she's like, "Happy, happy? I mean, I think he's himself in heaven."
yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, I think you're right about that." Right? Like all the ways. But my kids, like I used to think that people would treat them like a charity case. Like, okay, you don't have a dad, so we'll do extra things for you or whatever. But that's not what it is. It's like they they are still knuckleheads. They're 21 and 23 now. Peace on that. But they are different. Like the way they approach life, the way they approach their problems and their challenges, they are not wallowers.
Mm,
They have because of what they've been through. They are frustrated, they have short fuses, they have their own personality quirks, but they've been through the toughest thing. Like they lost their dad.
yeah. And that teaches you, I know myself, that teaches you, I can't stay here. I
Yeah,
can't stay here, you know. And
right.
and I had a saying last year, and it was like, what could I do? What could I do now that my future self will thank me for? That
Oh,
was like big throughout the whole of last year.
yes.
Everything I did. I was saying to myself, this is for our future selves. You know, this is
Yes.
I'll do this now because at the time I didn't feel like I guess deserved or wanted to do it for who I was in that moment. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
yeah.
having that anchor of this is for our future selves, you know, as painful as it is now, it's for our future
And
selves.
you were able, and that ties back to imagination because you're like, I know that Josh
Yeah,
will be thriving. We will get to a point where there will be a thriving Josh. You didn't know exactly what it would look like, but making the investment when you didn't feel like it in the moment would create thriving Josh.
yeah, yeah. And do you know what that comes from? And that came from the loss I experienced when I was young, because uh, because I knew I've been here. I've been here and I came out.
Yes,
I've been
yes.
here and I did get happy again, you know? I did get happy again.
This is like I had a friend say to me early on, I've never seen anybody so empowered by their loss. Like
Mm,
I there is nothing more empowering than surviving a catastrophic loss.
mm,
And I wasn't going to be that person that everybody just expected less of. And I
yeah,
wasn't going to let my children have a lesser life. And now life proves to me over and over again, like I cannot believe how amazing my life is. I still miss Mike. I still long for him. I don't have a partner in my life. It's not something that's like a real priority for me. I still have sadness, just like this past weekend when I was really embodied and feeling him in this space. But at the same time, I've got this amazing 21 and 23-year-old. Like, we made it, like, we did it. And we are launching like amazing human beings into the world that make their dad proud every single day. And
yeah,
that wasn't going to happen if I um, didn't try things out, if I didn't like have engaged participation in my way forward. And that's why, like, how this works. You've had these losses. You've seen thriving Josh. He kind of goes away for a while whenever there's a loss again. Loss is cyclical. This is back to the language conversation. We have no language around loss. Again, it's not rocket science. Loss exists in all of our lives. It is the human condition, but yet we are prepared for it in no possible way. We have no language to discuss it. We're afraid to do that. And we cannot get empowered that way. And we can't help each other that way.
Mm,
It's just learning more about ourselves and thinking for ourselves. Like, I think I was looking at one of your Instagram posts yesterday, like you're encouraging people to think for themselves. Let's
yeah.
stop. Let's stop accepting these cultural norms. They are not serving us. They're not serving us in the toxic parent space. They're not serving us in the loss space and a lot of other spaces. We are resilient.
Mm. Yeah, it's so many of the cultural things you're right, yeah, because culturally, really, a lot of people would have expected you to just become a widow.
Yes.
And a widow is somebody who is sad, miserable, and you see your life out. You see your life out. That's kind of what's expected of you, isn't it?
Yes. Absolutely.
Culturally. Yeah, and like
Absolutely.
to not do that is like weirdly against the grain, which is crazy.
Yeah. How could that possibly be against the grain? That is the weirdest thing ever.
It is so strange, yeah.
Like, I mean, if life was like that, everybody who lost someone, we would just be like, okay, you're stopped contributing to society. We're gonna put
Yeah,
you over here in the corner. There'd be none of us left. I mean, we're experiencing losses all the time, disappointments all the time, job losses and our health, all these things. And we should feel every minute of the difficulty of those. But we have to use our imagination and know that this cyclicality, we will ride it out. But we gotta have friends around us. We gotta try it, trial and error. We do have to take action at a certain point in time after we've had the right amount of time to cocoon.
yeah, yeah. And that cocoon phase, I guess, is different for everybody, right? It's like
Yes.
you never know how long it's going to be. I want to ask you, do you have, as a family, like as a family of three, the three of you, do you have any rituals that you do, like, I don't know, yearly on the date or on his birthday and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I always, and this is not for everybody.
Mm.
The death anniversaries, I didn't want to be reminded on the death anniversary. I just
Yeah,
need to kind of get through the death anniversary. So we'll check in with each other, but it won't be anything like, hey, this is the death anniversary or this is the birthday. Because we don't live in the same cities anymore. Connor lives in Denver, Kendall lives in New Orleans, I live in Virginia. The thing that matters to me most is whenever we all get back together, we do this little triangle hug, right? And you couldn't do that if you were four of you, but we get to touch each other and put our heads together in the middle. And like that gets me right now. Like it's like
yeah,
that is our reconnection, our little trio hug. And we
mm,
do that, when people like go off to far off places, we do that hug before. When we see each other again, we do that hug. Like that to us is, that is our way of belonging to each other, in a very physical sense. And I think the other thing that humor is a critical part of our family culture. Like we're
yeah,
always trying to make each other laugh. We're always trying to like have funny jokes, but we're also always bringing Mike into that. Like we would be
yeah,
like, "Oh my God, he would hate this."
yeah,
Like he really lives as part of our life. And in fact, we have some cookware, some corningware that you would like make your corn in, and the corningware was his mom's. So, and we never met his mom. She died when he was 22, but we would call her Grandma Marianne. That was Marianne was her name. We would refer, let's get that thing out that's Grandma Marianne's, right? And we have that today. So we actually have these touchstones that were this woman that we didn't know, but that was so like she was a single mom to Mike. So she was so important in his life, and he was so devastated when she died. And we rebuilt him with our family, right? And
mm,
now he's absent. So we kind of joke around like, Saint Mike, like, oh, you could never do anything wrong once you're gone off the face of the earth, like that. So he's like in us in all these ways. And the day he died, Kendall and I were taking a walk around the neighborhood to just cool down and try to get our heads together. And she said to me, "Well, Grandma Marianne must be really happy. Daddy's finally with her."
hmm,
And like so in a real way, he is so embedded in who we are.
Mm,
He, I have a pair of gloves that I use in the winter that are his gloves, and I thought I lost one. It'd be 10 years later, and I thought I lost these gloves, and I was like, okay, how do I feel about this? And then I was like, okay, Mike does not live in these gloves. He lives here. He
mm,
lives in the kids. Connor is very much looks like him, right? So rituals, and I think those are all incredibly important, but I feel like we've really come to a point where he is just part of us. So
mm.
we don't need to pull ourselves out and say, oh, I'm going to think about Mike today. He is just there all the time.
Yeah, I love that triangle hug as well. I like really feel that that's a moment of just
Yes.
we're doing it.
And then,
We're out here. We're doing it.
yeah,
We're
we're
all right.
we're doing it. We're making him proud. We're making ourselves proud. We're kicking ass and taking names. We are thriving because that is what we're capable of. We were supported well. I figured out through a lot of trial and error. I mean, and that's what this book is about. It's like how there's a chapter in here called Searching for Clues. How do you figure out your own way forward? I had to like pad around in the dark and figure that out. And after
Mm,
a decade, I really want to share that with people. And not because it's like you're going to follow steps 1 through 7. No, it's because here's my story. You can see I'm thriving. You pick and choose, and you were like, oh, that wouldn't work for me. Great. What
yeah.
does work for you? Who are you? And this just comes back around to your work as well. We want sometimes we want gurus or we want people to tell us, here's the roadmap, here's the thing. But I think what you and I are really trying to do is we are trying to get people to think for themselves, to find themselves in their losses, in their difficult engagements with their parents, and decide what's best for them. There's nothing more powerful than that, is figuring yourself out and how to apply yourself to the circumstances you're in.
Yeah. And just validating the messiness of it all,
Oh my God.
even in this conversation that we're having, there's just so many, to hear you say so many of the things that, I have experienced or the people listening will have experienced. It's like you say, when you're in them, like we all know rationally that everybody goes through it. But when you're in it, you think I'm the only one
Feels so,
feeling like this. I'm the only one thinking like this. Like I said, going to the outlet village, but anything that I used to have done with the kids, and
yeah.
then it was like, how do I do it now? Like I don't. It doesn't mean anything when I'm on my own. But then you have to like go. No, I've got to find a new way. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? I've got to. I don't know. Watch something different now, right?
Yes,
And it's okay, and I'm allowed to enjoy
you are.
that. Do you know what I
Or
mean?
because we have to find the pockets of enjoyment too, because that's what you're bringing back to your kids too. Like I always say, there was a Mike shaped hole for a long time, and many things have filled my Mike shaped hole.
Wow.
There's still like little gaps, but there's also some overlap and some new stuff. And I really visualize it that way. It's like this giant hole. Oh, Carl came in there, and then my brother-in-law came in there, and all these different things filled the hole. Things I could never have imagined. That's really what I want to tell people. You can't imagine, but when you are open and when you actively participate in your way forward, they show up.
Mm, yes, amazing. And I want to before we come to a proper close, I want to talk quickly about it. How was the writing experience? How was it writing the book?
Yeah, I think I also have a Substack called The Luminist. So I'd had some experience like with a weekly writing practice because I'm not a writer. I'm an MBA. I'm like an American capitalist. And so I had had a couple of years of writing my Substack, which I enjoy and do and release that every Saturday. But when it came to the book, I'd had pieces of the memoir part written, but really breaking down like the mindset shift and the playbook. I like it was hard going. There were definitely some tears because you're not dredging things back up again, right? And I'm sure the same for you when you were
Mm.
writing your book. It's like, but at the same, but and then you put it away for a while and you pull it back out and you're like, oh my God, I actually put something together that I
Yeah,
think can contribute
yeah.
to the world. I mean, how did you feel about it when it was your process?
No, so I would have days, right, where I would sit and I would be writing for a lot and I would, I'd have a lot written and I'd read it back at the end of the day and I'd be like, I've wasted a whole day, right? This is
Crap.
terrible. This
Yeah.
is awful, yeah. And there were times when I thought I may as well just delete this now, but I would shut the laptop, go home, and then sometimes I'd come back the next morning and read it and be like, this is so good. But for
Wow.
some reason at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and then sometimes I would get blind, as in I would write and then read it and I think I can't even work out if it makes sense. Just can't, because like I've been so in it.
Yeah.
I struggled with it. I actually found it really hard.
I think it was definitely like, I think of people who were like, you wrote a book, or, and I used to think, oh, is it that big of a deal? But after being through it, it is that big. I mean, that is like, it is, it's hard. It's really hard. It's so
Yeah,
worth it in the end, but you just, you go through these like, oh, I love this. I hate this. I hate myself. I hate everything, you know?
yeah,
Maybe that's what the creative process takes. I don't know. I think for you and I, we're fortunate to have like a, you know, with our books, like an artifact that we can, like a business card, but talking about the points in here, you know, with your book, you know, there's an audience that we want people to feel some
yeah,
freedom from their circumstance. For me, my audience for Do Loss is if you're going through loss, if you're trying to console other people, you know, if you want to kind of give it as a gift to people. But it's like, even if you're not in the middle of loss, I think there's just so much, and maybe that's even a better time to consume it, because you're like, okay, when the next loss comes my way, and I'm sorry, world, the next loss will come our way. Like,
yeah,
you and I know that we've had, you know, so many. And in the book, I actually talk about not just the Steeltown stuff and Mike's death, but like whenever I left corporate America, and then whenever the empty nest happened, you know,
mm,
how I was like, oh shit, like now I got nobody here. I got, my triangle hugs are only happening every couple months now, right?
yeah,
And I love my solitude. That's one of my regulators that I used in the adapt phase. But to really have that identity of being a mom really shift, like the empty nest was hard. That's another kind of loss. And I
yeah,
think it's one of the weird things is like, we have all these kinds of losses, but we never think to ourselves, oh, well, I'm going to take what I learned from this loss and apply it to this loss.
mm,
No, we're like, as if it's just a constellation of random things. Like we're in the process of losing throughout our lives. And
mm,
there's a lot to be learned by the way we got through prior ones.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. And what is the release date of the book?
March the 3rd.
March the 3rd. Okay, I think this will probably come out a week or so before, so it'll give people the
Perfect.
opportunity to get the little last pre-sales in, and then
Be great.
get their hands on the book. I've got mine. I'm very lucky to have mine, and I'm very grateful. Look, before we say goodbye, is there anything? What parting comments would you leave people listening that may be experiencing loss themselves or close to someone that has? What would be your like parting wisdom, you'd say?
My parting wisdom is, you know, we talked a lot about what it's like to be in that cocoon phase, and you spend as much time in that cocoon phase as you need to. But life awaits you after that. And, you know, open your imagination to that different kind of great. You know, accept that you won't be the same and your life won't be the same. That's kind of, you know, we're made to change. That's sort of the human condition. And I just want everybody to understand, like I experienced in my life, and I think like you've experienced, Josh, like a different kind of great awaits. It's possible.
Mm, yeah,
That would be my
amazing.
parting.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. This has been amazing. I knew it would be. I had no doubts about it.
So fun. Yeah.
And
Really.
I'm very grateful to you and your time. And I just know that like there'll be a lot of people that listen to this that will have experienced loss, and this will mean the world to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I did tell you it would be dysfunctional. So thank you for sticking around till the end here. And if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please help me to grow Dysfunctional by sharing with your friends on social media. You can find me at Josh_FFW. And then wherever you're listening to this or watching this, please make sure that you've liked and subscribed, left us a 5-star review and a comment if your platform allows it. And I'll see you on the next one.